الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We'll continue inshallah ta'ala with the book تذكرة السامع والمتكلم by Ibn Jamaa rahimahullah. And for those who are following the book, it's page number 45. Page number 45 from the PDF that we sent. And before we start, since the morning lecture starts after half an hour from the iqamah of the salah, so this time, an advice to myself and everyone, it's a precious time. It's one of the blessed times of the day. After Fajr, the Prophet ﷺ used to sit and make dhikr till the sun rises. And there are specific adhkar, as we all know, not to be missed whatsoever in the morning and in the evening. So this is an opportunity not to miss them. And the time of it starts from the adhan of al-Fajr anyway, and it's also extended. If a person misses some of them, he can still say them later, inshallah ta'ala. But especially for those who are seeking the knowledge of the deen of Allah, they ought to be the first when it comes to following the sunnah, the way of the Prophet ﷺ, and the ibadah of the Prophet ﷺ. The other thing, inshallah ta'ala, with the questions that were sent after the lectures, inshallah, we'll make sure that it is answered right after each lecture, one of which I saw some of the questions from yesterday morning from 9 to 1 from the sisters. So this can be easily sent, inshallah ta'ala, and we'll figure out something today so that it's answered right away, inshallah. Another point is, as mentioned last night, for those who are not attending from 9 to 1, this week specifically, if you're not here from 9 to 1, you still, inshallah ta'ala, have to go through the lectures of this book. So either you have the book in Arabic and you read it and you understand it, or you listen to the lectures, but please do so just this week, inshallah ta'ala, because as many things will be or mentioned in the book and will be mentioned that without it, we will be in some or many situations, we will be talking from different foundations. We won't understand one another. So that's why it's important, even for those who are not present, for those who are doing it online, it's important. It's the right, your rights and my rights is that we listen to the like of this subject so that nobody would say later, you didn't tell us. I'm not talking about instructions of how to follow the class, but when someone was not told, for example, about something that is so precious that he missed, for example, and which is the foundation of the subject. So again, without trying to convince, inshallah ta'ala, we'll all listen, inshallah, and make sure that we either listen to all of the lectures in your free time, inshallah, or when you're driving or so, before Saturday, inshallah ta'ala. I'm going from the beginning and also in the middle of the book. So as mentioned before, so here we're still going from the beginning of the book, and then from 9 to 1, we started with the third chapter that talks about the manners of the muta'allim, or the learning person, to his own self, which also brings another point, briefly, inshallah, that needs to be reminded, that was mentioned, a statement by Sufyan al-Thawri rahimahullah, that he said, ما عالجت شيئا أشد علي من نيتي. I've never struggled with anything more intense than my niyyah, than my intentions. And the meaning of this is that to have a sincere intention, it's a must, of course. It's the condition for the deeds to be accepted. And we talked about what are the intentions that a person seeks when he seeks knowledge. What kind of intention? It's more than one. We're not going to get into the details of that now. But repeating this great meaning that many people, they think the niyyah or the intentions or the sincerity, because of that statement and other statements, it's a very difficult thing. No, it's not a very difficult thing. Right? It requires struggle, yes, but there's nothing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us that is difficult, meaning beyond our capacity. It's in our capacity to have sincere and pure intentions. So no one to say as an excuse, I can't have a sincere intention. No, the same way that you're able to make salah, that means you have to also have a sincere intentions. And what is meant by that statement, which many people, they don't pay attention to that meaning of the like of Sufyan al-Thawri and others, meaning because the niyyah, and I'm repeating what's mentioned yesterday, the place where the niyyah is, where in the heart, right? So it's a deed done by the heart, and the heart called what in Arabic? Al-qalb. And al-qalb, what's the meaning of the qalb? Changes. So your niyyah will constantly change. So since your heart is changing all the time, what you're here now, your heart is different than when you step out of the masjid, is different than when you go to work, is different than when you are with your family. And this is the mubahat, this is the permissible acts still. And you can imagine, may Allah protect us with sins. So the heart constantly changing. And since the niyyah is, the place of it is in the heart, so the niyyah keeps on changing. So that's why you have to keep on making sincere intentions, because your heart keeps changing. Not that it's difficult. It's like you have to make Salatul Fajr, and then Salatul Dhuhr, and then Salatul Asr, like this. So you have to keep on doing this act of ibadah. So the same thing, your ikhlas, your sincerity of intentions, you have to constantly make this ibadah. So it's not a difficult thing. It's just something that has to be constantly being paying attention to it. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the bestower of all good, and nothing of the good deeds, a person should quit it or not do it because he doubts his intentions. This is a principle that never fades. If it's a good deed and you have the ability to do it, and you know that this is something that is pleasing to Allah, do it. Even if shaitan tells you that you are the worst show off on the face of earth, still do it and defeat the shaitan. And work on your intentions. Seek the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, and purifying ourselves with the action itself. So nothing should stop a person from doing what is good. And that's related to the next subject that we stopped last night with regards to, he says, fasl, a chapter related to the previous one about the virtue of ilm and knowledge. He says, this is warning against negating the pure intentions by ar-riya or show off, the good deeds and the high level of seeking knowledge. And the more we speak about the superiority of knowledge and seeking knowledge, nothing is the like of it when it comes to seeking, as we heard in the hadith and the ayat and the statements of the early generations of Islam. And that by itself should be enough for the ones that have the concern of the deen, and one of which is to preserve the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, great intentions to be upon. And the higher the person gets, the more dangerous it is if he falls from a higher place, right? So if you choose for yourself to take yourself into these higher places, you have to make sure that you are warned against more of what negates this or what breaks it. Even the ulama, they say, if someone finds himself, Allah made it easy for him to take the path of knowledge, if he turns away from it, that's a bad sign. Even though this is not talking about obligations, but it's a bad sign. Why would a person leave something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it easy for him? Like even Qiyamul Layl and the like of this, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, Ya Abdullah, la takum mithla fulan. Kana yaqumu min al-layl fataraka qiyam al-layl. Don't be like so and so. He used to pray the night prayer, and then he quit the night prayer. So this is a bad sign for the person. So to be warned against what we need to be warned against, this is part of the deen. And that's what he says, that all of what's mentioned before of the fadila, of the virtue of al-ilm and the ulama, this is, as he says, إِنَّمَا هُوَ فِي حَقِّ الْعُلَمَاءِ الْعَامِلِينَ. This is for the ulama, the people of knowledge, al-amilin, those who act upon the knowledge, al-abrar al-muttaqin, the righteous ones, the people of taqwa, الَّذِينَ قَصَدُوا بِهِ وَجْهَ اللَّهِ الْكَرِيمِ, those who seek by their knowledge and by seeking knowledge the face of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be seen in the day of judgment, the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَالزُّلْفَى لَدَيْهِ فِي جَنَّاتِ النَّعِيمِ, and to be close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the jannat, in the delight jannat that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prepared for the believers. This is the rewards and the fadila and the superiority and the virtue is about those who would fulfill these criteria of knowledge and actions. لا من طلبه بسوء نية, not for the one that seek knowledge with bad intentions. Bad intentions, which is anything other than the hereafter. Any worldly intentions for seeking knowledge is bad intentions. To have fame, to have followers, to make money, to whatever. Has to be only seeking the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that reward is to be taken in the hereafter. And one of the many intentions that we mentioned to preserve the deen, and the first thing and the first and foremost is to save ourselves before anyone else from the punishment of Allah, to have the fear of Allah, and so on. لا من طلبه بسوء نية أو خبث طوية. خبث طوية. الطوية is when something is folded, and al-khubth is evil or impurity, something that is impure and evil that is hidden, which is basically inside of his heart. Someone wants to learn to, as it's going to be mentioned in some of the text, to defeat someone, or to in arguments, for example, or something like this. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what's in the hearts. And this is also was mentioned, or will be mentioned later, but mentioned in the other chapters, of one of the adab, one of the manners to be observed with oneself, is to make sure that there's no ghish, there's no cheating, there's no deception. The heart is upon truthfulness and sincerity, not having bad or ill intentions for anything that a person do, one of which is this great favor from Allah when someone is seeking knowledge. أو لأغراض دنيوية, or for worldly benefits, من جاه, status, أو مال, wealth, أو مكاثرة في الأتباع والطلاب, having lots of followers and students. فقد روي عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. He mentioned here 3 or 1, 2, 3, 4 narrations, and that's the end of this chapter and a statement. These 3 narrations or 4 narrations, 2 of them are authentic and 2 of them are weak, but they give the same meaning. And there were many questions with regards why there is fabricated and weak hadith in the books of the ulama. Don't they know about this? Sometimes the hadith, when it says mawdu' is fabricated, it's not necessarily known as fabricated. Someone clearly lied. But according to the criteria of accepting the hadith, someone in the chain of narration is known to be a liar or so. So this is one thing, and not all of the hadith are authenticated by all of the ulama. Or maybe someone else would authenticate the narration that is mentioned. And also the meaning of it is if it's correct. So they meant by what they narrate is the meaning that is being present. So, but the first one, which is a very famous statement, even though when it comes to the hadith itself, it's not an authentic hadith. من طلب العلم, and even if it's weak, but listen to the meanings are correct in this hadith and the next one, and it will be clarified in the authentic hadith afterwards. من طلب العلم, whoever seeks the ilm, ليماري به السفهاء, to make mira with the sufaha, the foolish ones. Al-mira is to argue with doubt. When someone has doubt and they argue, mainly this is al-mira, and it can come also in the same meaning of al-jidal, as it's also mentioned in some other statements. So ليماري به السفهاء. السفهاء, the foolish ones. The foolish ones, when they argue, they don't argue based on ilm. So they just to present an argument and think that he they think that he's articulated his opinion and things like this. أو يكاثر به العلماء, or that he would have or seek the knowledge to make himself as if he is from the people of knowledge, and as if he is one of them. And then he says, أو يصرف به وجوه الناس إليه, or for him to have the faces of the people turns to him. He is someone that people would look up to him. يصرف به, يصرف turns به, by the ilm, وجوه الناس, the faces of the people. You know, when someone is knowledgeable, that you're looking at him, you're looking forward, not necessarily the physical aspect of it. Whoever seeks knowledge for these ill intentions, أدخله الله النار. Allah will make him enter the hellfire. He says, أخرجه الترمذي. وعنه صلى الله عليه وسلم: من تعلم علما لغير الله أو أراد به غير وجه الله فليتبوأ مقعده من النار. Whoever learns matter of ilm for the sake of other than Allah, or he wants with his knowledge other than the face of Allah and to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the day of judgment and the rewards from Allah, let him prepare himself for a position in the hellfire. So this is the second one, the sound hadith. Then after that, he says, وَرُوِيَ مَنْ تَعَلَّمَ عِلْمًا مِمَّا يُبْتَغَى بِهِ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى لا يتعلمه إلا ليصيب به غرضا من الدنيا لم يجد عرف الجنة يوم القيامة. خرجه أبو داود. This is a sound hadith, and we need to remember this hadith. Whoever learned علما, knowledge, and the ilm, even though it's nakira, but it's only referring to the knowledge of the deen, not the knowledge of anything else. Anytime the word ilm is mentioned in the Quran and in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, it's only the ilm of the deen, the ilm of the Sharia, nothing else. So this should be clear as a principle that never fails. من تعلم علما مما يبتغى به وجه الله, in which this ilm is, the norm is that a person would seek the face of Allah, and as we said, the face of Allah meaning to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment, and there's nothing wrong to say, and the effect of that is that seeking rewards from Allah, but without denying this attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as some might take that in such a way. So this ilm, the ilm of the deen, is basically to be sought for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. Whoever learn it for not that reason, لا يتعلمه, he does not learn it, إلا ليصيب به, except to have الإصابة, can either you hit something, you get wounded, مصيبة is a calamity, and also to attain something, because as if someone threw something onto you and you have it. So إلا ليصيب به, except to attain by this ilm عرضا من الدنيا, some apparent things of this worldly life. لم يجد عرف الجنة يوم القيامة, the punishment is he would not even find the fragrance of Jannah in the day of Al-Qiyamah. That means he's among the people of the hellfire. So this is a severe warning. Do we need to explain it in the light of matters of Aqidah so that we don't fall into what the Khawarij say? We don't need to, because this is in the context of warning. So when it's warning, leave it like this. Get the warning of it, right? If someone would start making takfir of others, of course, this is not the way of the people of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, because a Muslim sinner dies in the state of sin. It doesn't mean that he's going to be in hellfire forever. But that weakens the effect of, sometimes, weakens the effect of the hadith when someone would, every time a hadith like that has to be explained in the light of matters of belief. So the way of the ulama of the Salaf is to leave the hadith of al-wa'id, to leave it like this so that the heart will be affected by it. And you see the hadith, لم يجد عرف الجنة. Some of the narrations in عرف الجنة is from that much distance. I mean, he's not even close to enter the Jannah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of that because he sought the ilm, the knowledge of the deen, for the sake of other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the next hadith, which is also an authentic hadith, and this is in hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, and which is it's a long hadith, the hadith of Abi Hurairah radiyallahu anhu, that he said, إن أول الناس يقضى عليه يوم القيامة. One of the first people that will be judged in the day of Al-Qiyamah. And he mentioned the three types of people. He mentioned also only the shahid here, the shahid, which is the point of reference here, the one that رجل تعلم العلم وعلمه. You know, the three people, someone is generous, someone fought for the sake of Allah, but they were all doing it not for the sake of Allah. They were doing it for fame, so they will be punished. They will get the same reward as mentioned here. Here, what's mentioned, رجل تعلم العلم. A man learned the knowledge. وعلمه, and he taught it to others. And al-ilm is the ilm of the deen, of course. وقرأ القرآن, and he recited the Quran, memorized it, perfected it. فأتي به, he will be brought in the day of Al-Qiyamah, because the hadith in the beginning, إن أول الناس يقضى عليه يوم القيامة, the first people that will be judged in the day of Al-Qiyamah. فعرفه نعمه فعرفه. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make him acknowledge the favors of Allah, and he would acknowledge them. قال فما عملت فيها. He will be said, what did you do as action as a result of these favors of Allah? And these favors of Allah, that he taught him the ilm, that he made them among the people of the Quran. So he said, تعلمت فيك العلم وعلمته. I learned فيك. I learned for your sake the knowledge, and I taught it to others, which is the best state that a person can be in. وقرأت فيك القرآن, and I recited for your sake the Quran. قال كذبت. It will be said to him, you're a liar, you lied. ولكن تعلمت ليقال عالم. Rather, you learned for them to say that he's a alim, he's a scholar, he's a person of knowledge. وقرأت ليقال قارئ, and you recited for them to say that he's a قارئ. of the Quran. فقط قيل, and it was said, you get what you were seeking in this world. ثم أمر به فسحب على وجهه حتى ألقي في النار. Then he will be commanded and he will be dragged on his face till he's thrown into the fire. He will be dragged on his face till he's thrown into the fire as a just punishment, because this ilm, as you see what's repeated in the hadith, يبتغي به وجه الله. You seek by this knowledge the highest level of reward, which is the highest delight that the people of Jannah they receive when they see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's nothing more delightful, the most joyful thing for the people in the hereafter is what? Is not the Jannah with the Hur al-Ain and the food. This is all great delight from Allah. The highest level of all of that is the fact that they would get to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They see the face of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the fact that they are close to Allah. In the hadith about the virtue of ilm, it's mentioned there specifically. متعلم علما يبتغي به وجه الله. It's the highest level of seeking, and that's why they seek the highest level of rewards. And that's why they are the highest level, those who have it and they apply it. We're not talking about individuals here. We're talking about those who apply this. They are the highest of the ummah after the prophets, as we heard. Prophets comes first, then after that, as-siddiqeen, which is the ulama al-amilin, the people of knowledge, those who act upon the knowledge. So why would a person then, again as Rabi'at al-Ra'i says, يضيع عمره? Why would a person waste his life? It's only one life in this world. And if you have the means to do so, why waste it in what? Millions of, everybody is having whatever they're having. How many people are really sincerely seeking the knowledge of the deen of Allah? Especially when it's scarce in the time that we live in. Now, most people, they have zuhd in it. Billah. They turn away from it. And the dunya is the concern and things like this. So the person has the means, and he has the physical means and the ability and intellect, and it requires for the person to be smart and be able to study and things like this. Why waste his life in something else? But again, the warning here is, and how is that related to seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the day of judgment? And the punishment is from the same sort of evil deed. When the person would seek that knowledge for the sake of other than Allah, then he will be dragged on his face in the day of judgment as a way of humiliating him. Then the next hadith, which is the last hadith in the chapter as far as the hadith is concerned, which is the same, I'm sorry, this is the second one. So this is the uquba, this is the punishment. And then he mentions here, وعن حماد بن سلمة, one of the great imam of Salaf, he said, من طلب الحديث لغير الله تعالى مكر به. Whoever seeks the knowledge of the hadith لغير الله, for other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not for the sake of Allah, مكر به. مكر به, that means al-makr is the plot. So he will be plotted against. That means he will be dragged into his own destruction in a way that he does not expect. And as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَكَرُوا وَمَكَرَ اللَّهُ وَاللَّهُ خَيْرُ الْمَاكِرِينَ. The disbelievers, they plotted. They think that they plot in a hidden way, making their own plots against the deen of Allah. They think they will be successful. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His plan is in such a way that is opposing their way, but He led them to see some of the results of their actions in the immediate sense, thinking that they are winning, they're gaining, and so on. But it's as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, as a rule that never also fails, وَلَا يَحِيقُ الْمَكْرُ السَّيِّئُ إِلَّا بِأَهْلِهِ. The evil plots is only turning around to come against the person. What comes around goes around. So when a person have makr, evil plots, he's going that direction. He's thinking that he's going to get his harm to the one that he wants to harm. And in reality, he's just going into a circle. It's going to come back to him from his back. So he's planning, he's plotting against his own self while he doesn't know it, when he doesn't feel it. That's how dangerous and how a severe punishment that is. So he mentioned here, whoever seeks the ilm, he does not mean the ilm of the hadith specifically, the ilm in general, and one of which is the ilm of the hadith, لغير الله, for other than Allah. Again, for these other reasons, مُكِرَ بِهِ, he will be treated with that, because he's plotting basically. When a person, anyone that does anything for the sake of other than Allah, he is plotting. He's hiding evil intentions, which is evil actions as a result of that. Therefore, the punishment comes from the same sort of deed that he does. And then he says, وعن بشر, he says, وعن بشر قال أوحى الله تعالى إلى داود. Bishr al-Hafi is one of the ones that is famous to have zuhd and things like this. And there's many of Israeliyat or things from the people of the book that he would narrate. And as we know, the rule from it is that, as the Prophet ﷺ said, حدثوا عن بني إسرائيل, you can narrate from the people of Bani Israel if it's not against what we have in our deen. And there's no harm, even though it's best to avoid it because we have what's sufficient. So words of wisdom and things of that nature. He says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to Dawood alayhi salam saying, لا تجعل بيني وبينك عالما مفتونا فيصدك بسكره عن محبتي أولئك قطاع الطريق على عبادي. And the meaning of it has been mentioned from among the early generations of Islam, and it's present in the deen of Allah and in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. Basically, it says, Allah said to him, do not make between me and you a alim, a person of knowledge, maftoon. Maftoon, the fitna afflicted him. What is the fitna of the alim? With regards to his ilm. He has ilm, but he sought it for the sake of other than Allah. He's seeking some worldly benefit, whatever there is, and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what's in his heart. So that alim is a huge fitna. Huge fitna. The reason why there is fitna in the ummah is because of this. Because if people are confused, they don't know their deen, because if it's so-called people that attributed to ilm, they would give them a distorted image of the deen. What can the people do? The people, they follow their ulama and they're commanded to follow their ulama. So one of the worst things that a person can have is a alim maftoon. And it also shows that al-alim, as it's mentioned in an early statement, is between the person and Allah. Between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a alim. What is this wasita? Is the wasita to tabligh. What is between you and Allah? We know that there is no one between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. The deen is upon the tawheed. No one is between you and Allah. If you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala anytime, you ask Allah in the day, in the night, وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيب. If my slaves ask you about me, I'm near them. So there's no barriers, no intermediaries. This is the tawheed of Allah. But what's meant here is the balagh, conveying the message from Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not speak to each and every one of us like those deviants would claim. Otherwise, there will be religions as the number of the human beings on the face of earth. Because the shayateen, they whisper. And when these people say, Allah inspired me, mashallah. No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the matter very clear. And when it comes to al-balagh, when it comes to conveying the message, there's prophets, messengers of Allah. And that's it. To cut all of these evil leads and those claim that I saw in my dream this, I was inspired by this. No, we already, even if he is truthful that he saw in this dream or whatever, it doesn't matter to us. Deen, al-balagh, conveying the message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the people is through the messengers of Allah and the inheritors of the messengers of Allah. The ulama, those who do not invent something from their own, they just learn the message of the prophets and they convey it to the people, because it's not in the capacity of everyone to be a person of knowledge, which shows again the status of the ulama. As mentioned before, warathatul anbiya, the inheritors of the prophets. So you have to have between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a alim when it comes to learning, conveying the message. So if this alim is maftoon, this is the real misery of this life. If his fitna afflicted him, so what's going to happen? فَيَصُدَّكَ بِسُكْرِهِ, he will block you. فَيَصُدَّكَ, الصد is to prevent someone, to block someone. بِسُكْرِهِ, as-sukr is intoxication. He's maftoon. So he's maftoon, that means his heart is corrupted, even though he has knowledge. His heart is corrupted, so he's like as if he's intoxicated. So this intoxication that he has, he will prevent you and block you by his intoxication. عن محبتي, away from my love, the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because he would make you think that this is the way to seek the pleasure of Allah when it's not. So in reality, you would get yourself further away from the love of Allah, thinking that you love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala love you. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it very clear, قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهَ فاتبعوني يحببكم الله. If you claim that you love Allah, follow me, follow the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will love you. So the maftun, the alim that is maftun, he might give you some things that if you try it, you'll feel that Allah loves you. And this deen is not about you feel like, no, there's ilm. And if you apply the matters of ilm and the wahy, then if the feelings comes, mashallah, great. But still, you need to be, you would still know that you are upon what is right, because based on the ilm that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserved. So, and that's one of the intentions why we need to seek knowledge. But because as a matter of fact, if this is at all times this present, imagine the times of fitan. The more fitna there is, the more those who claim to be upon knowledge when they're not are widespread. And they would lead people astray. We're not talking about individuals, it might be oneself or someone else. It's not about pointing fingers. This is a reality that we have in the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ. But the ulama of the haqq are present. And we only have the outside appearance and actions. We don't judge what's in the hearts. And the alim, he's the one that will be able to see who is maftoon and who's not. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Aba Allahu illa, which sometimes literally translated as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would refuse but to expose these people, because the deen need to be preserved. So exposed with what they say, with what they do. So the ilm is very clear. So when someone called the people to other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, other than the way the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, even he might sound righteous, good, whatever there is, he's maftun. فَيَصُدَّكَ بِسُكْرِهِ عَنْ مَحَبَّتِي. And then he says, أُولَٰئِكَ قُطَّاعُ الطَّرِيقِ عَلَى عِبَادِي. They are the قُطَّاع الطَّرِيق. قُطَّاع, those who cut the roads or the path for my servants and slaves and the believers, the highway robbers, like those who they used to be in the past, where you're traveling in peace and all of a sudden you find these robbers, they come out from nowhere and they might kill, they might take your money. And this is how these types of ulama, that or not ulama, those who have knowledge but they're maftoon, they will cut the way for you so that you don't reach your destination. And the example is very clear, and the ulama and the early generation also always mention this at all times. Why? Because what does qati' al-tariq does? The one that if you're traveling and you have your money and everything, he steals your money. So this alim that is maftoon, the one that is deviated, he steals your religion away from you. You have the right for your religion to be explained to you clearly. This is the right of every human being, that they get the truth presented to them. So when the people that are entrusted by the truth, they steal, they hide, they give whatever they think of a benefit for them. Either sometimes they're pressured by those of authority, they're pressured by the masses of the people, and it's still a pressure. And as the ulama, they say when they classify the ulama, or those who are attributed to ilm, some of them is, as Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen and others they mention, is alim dawla, the alim of the authorities. Whatever the authorities they say, he just follows that, regardless whether it's haram, halal, it doesn't matter. And there's the alim ummah, which might sound as a good thing, but it's not really. Alim ummah, the alim of the ummah, meaning what? Whatever the ummah is upon, he's like them. The masses, the pressure of the masses. If he tells them the truth, they would reject him. He won't have followers. And he might have, and that's the maftoon, that's the fitna, may Allah protect us. He might think it doesn't have to be that he's someone evil and plotting evil. No, he wants good for the religion. And he sees people turning away from the religion. So at least to get them to do something, to save the basics of the religion, right? At least that they're making salah. And if I tell them the way things are, they would even come to listen to the foundations of the deen. So at least they get to be Muslims making salah and things like this. And these other things, it's okay. We're in a crisis. We need to save the Muslims. The youth are falling apart and going astray and disbelieving in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So at least to get them to be Muslims, to save their religion. This sounds like a great intentions, mashallah. But what is more dangerous than this, the deen is changing. The dangerous part is, which is far worse than anything else, that the way when they change things, he's supposed to be looked at as alim, as a person of knowledge. That means this is the religion. He's conveying to them the religion, right? He's not dealing with them as in a fatwa level. And we have to make sure that this is very clear to us. Fatwa level meaning you have someone comes to you, he's leaving the deen of Islam. right? And you tell him, at least make your salah. And you might overlook other things. This is a situation, right, that is related to an individual, and you're not changing the religion. Versus someone that's supposed to be looked up to as a alim, and he's approving for people something that is against the religion. And that's the worst thing that can happen to the ummah. Because what? Because that means this is the religion of Allah. This is the religion of Islam. And to himself, alhamdulillah, we saved the lives of millions of people. They were being led astray, alhamdulillah, they're making salah. And they would even use, which is with all good intentions and everything like this, but sometimes or oftentimes, kind of, half of knowledge is worse than no knowledge whatsoever. When they would say this is the fiqh of the Andalus, how they saved the Andalus at the time just to be lenient in some things, this is distorting the religion. Fiqh of the Andalus, or this is when you are in the fatwa basis situation, is different than, again, giving a distorted image of the deen of Islam. And you can name it. And we don't want to get into the details of this, but very easy and simple. And it's not something that is necessarily related to the aqidah, which is another thing. Mixing of the genders, for example, right? You might have people that are mixing and you might not talk to them as individuals, but when you express and you make it as this is the norm of the Muslims, right? You're changing in the religion. The masajid becomes in such a way. The danger of it that you're changing in the religion to the lives of the people. The religion is not going to be changed, is always going to be saved, but it's the way that people will perceive the religion. The same thing with matters of aqidah, approving deviations in matters of aqidah. There's difference of having kindness and goodness with a relationship with those who are deviated in aqidah and they're still within the boundary of Islam. And you have good relationships with them. If you might even sacrifice your life to save their lives. But at the same time, when it comes to deen, the matter is we need to preserve the deen. We're not going to distort the matters of aqidah so that they don't get angry with us, right? But at the same time, the balance, and that's how Ahlul Sunnah are upon. They might say something being deviation, but they're not being making hypocrisy when they deal nice with even with the people of deviation in a level that, or in a relationship, Muslims versus non-Muslims, for example. But this is a detailed subject. But the point here is what he's trying to say here is what the importance of the ilm and the danger of seeking the ilm for other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the importance of the alim between the person and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, either to steal away his religion or to maintain one's religion. And this between is about al-balagh, is about conveying the message. It's not about seeking holiness from them or barakah from them or anything like this. It's about conveying the truth the way it is. Then someone is different than someone else. Yes, this is where the ilm comes in place, and what's the priorities for a certain individual versus someone else and things of that nature. We're supposed to finish at 6:15, inshallah. So 7:15. So this is the end of this chapter, warning against what mentioned if a person does not apply the virtue of al-ilm. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy for all of us, inshallah, to learn. This is, we're having an exam, inshallah, Saturday. So what's in this chapter, we have these two authentic hadith, inshallah ta'ala, we need to know them. And what is the meaning of basically that some might be qata' tariq? What is it? This is the right translation for it? Highway robbers? Is there anything better than that? That's it. Huh? Bandits? Bandits? I say it right? Bandit. Okay. Highway robbers or bandits? Right. So how is that related? What's the job of the alim? So all of that, inshallah, to be observed, inshallah. If you have any questions in the next 5 minutes related to this, of course, inshallah. And there's some questions that was sent here. Some is related to the pages and subject of yesterday morning. So maybe this would be dealt with, inshallah, from the 9 o'clock session. First of all, this is Kitab تذكرة السامع المتكلم, not حلية طالب العلم. There's no English version that I know of the book. So I looked, but I could not find any. So maybe someone can translate it, inshallah, it's easy. So that's why when someone from yesterday, so forgive us, inshallah, with the notes, with the questions. Inshallah, hopefully this will be fixed and becomes easy immediately after the lectures, inshallah. Um, anything? نعم. The hadith, the third hadith again, من تعلم علما مما يبتغى به وجه الله تعالى. Whoever seeks knowledge, we're seeking the face of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the rewards from Allah. This is what the ilm is supposed to be. لا يتعلمه إلا ليصيب به غرضا من الدنيا. He does not learn it except to attain any of the apparent things of this dunya, of this worldly life. لم يجد عرف الجنة يوم القيامة. He would not find the fragrance of Jannah in the day of Al-Qiyamah. عرف. عرف is fragrance now. If there's any questions in the Zoom session, is there a way to find it? Oh, it's okay. If there is. Oh, okay, there's a question here. In the last ayah of Fatiha, when it says that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the messenger of Allah and those who are with him, or Al-Fatih, Surah Al-Fatih, and those who are with him are stern with the disbelievers. I said the question, inshallah, will be only related to the subject, but okay, maybe it is. And merciful to the believers, and you see them prostrating and doing ruku', seeking the fadl of Allah and His pleasure. Is this the same as seeking the wajh Allah? Like wanting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be pleased with them. No, this is seeking the يبتغون فضلا من ربهم ورضوانا. They seek the blessings, the closeness to Allah, the rewards from Allah, the pleasure of Allah. This is all as clear. And wajhullah, the face of Allah, if a person means by this the rewards from Allah, that's fine, but without denying the attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because others, when they say, they always translate wajhullah, they seek the wajh of Allah, they say it's only the rewards from Allah, because they deny this attribute of Allah, which is not the way of the people of Ahl Sunnah. So if it's okay to say, يبتغي به وجه Allah, he seeks to see the face of Allah, yes, this is a valid intentions, because this is the belief of Ahl Sunnah, that the believers will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the day of judgment, but also rewards from Allah alone, but without denying this attribute of Allah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a face in a way that nothing is the like of Allah. A question, meaning of maftoon, does it have to be the scholar or can it be a normal person? Of course, fitna, everybody is subjected to the fitna, but what is meant here is the alim, if he's maftoon, his musibah, his calamity is far worse than anyone else. If a normal person is afflicted by fitna, okay, he's a normal person. People are not going to follow him. But the problem is, which is still a problem, of course, and this is an evil thing, but for a alim to be maftoon, this is how dangerous the matter is. People will be deceived as a result of this. And again, it's a warning for myself and everyone. We're not learning this so that we judge others, to judge ourselves, to make sure that we warn ourselves. And the more the person learns, the more that he will be able to see what is right and what is wrong. اعرف الحق تعرف أهله. If you know the truth, you will know the people of the truth. And especially at the times when things are confusing, so a person should have the high zeal to learn the deen of Allah, to be away from the fitna. Will the exam be available online as well as part-time students? Yes, the exam will be online and physically here and everything, inshallah. Just to confirm it, the two hadith to memorize are on pages 45 of the PDF, Tirmidhi and Abu Dawood, correct. By the way, we did not start yet the hadith. There are 200 or so hadith to be memorized. This will start, inshallah ta'ala, next week. So if you want to memorize these hadith, mashallah, it's good, but you need to study the meaning of it at least, which is this, the two hadith in page, the last hadith in page 45 and the next hadith in page 46. 45 and 46, inshallah. The last two hadith. Question is, if someone learn the Quran so that he can lead the Taraweeh and lead the Salah, is that sinful? If that's for the worldly gain of it, yes. But a child, say for example, he wants this, should we then tell him, you're not going to memorize Quran? Or someone, even a grown-up, he says in his heart, he wants to learn Quran so that he can lead the people in Taraweeh, and then he show off his beautiful voice. Should he quit learning the Quran? No. He should continue to learn the Quran and work on his intentions. And the same thing for the children. They won't have sincere intentions. So they continue to seek the knowledge, and by the barakah of the knowledge and the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will change the hearts to make it sincerely for the sake of Allah. But yes, this is an important issue, the issue with leading the salah and how people compete, for example, to lead the salah. This is not a thing to compete in doing, but rather it's a position to run away from. Run away from as a choice, but it's to be given, and when it's given to someone, then he should accept it and seek help from Allah. But if he's seeking it, he won't be helped in this matter because it's a matter of ibadah. The same thing with the ilm, and the like of it, yani, mashallah. And that's why also, as it will be mentioned, the ulama, people sometimes, or many times, they don't like the ways of the people of the ulama, because the ulama is different than those who learn how to give a speech. You might be talented in giving a speech. This has nothing to do with the ilm. This is a talent, but the ulama, it's based on the ilm that they have. And yes, some have the ability to convey the message and some not, but we have to remove that from us, because this is a fitna in the heart of the people. We're concerned about the alim and not how the alim is articulating himself or motivating the people. It's about the ilm that is having it and he applies it. And that's what we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be upon the ilm.